Good afternoon to all across the African continent, and good morning to everyone across the length and breadth of Canada. It's my great privilege as Gareth Bloor, President of the Canada Africa Chamber of Business, to welcome you all to this incredibly exciting webinar. Without further ado, I will call Chair of the Board of the Canada Africa Chamber of Business, Mr. Sebastian Spio-Gabra, to welcome us all.
Thank you very much, Gareth, and thank you everyone for joining. It's a real distinct pleasure and honor to be in the company of some of Africa's best humans and greatest people, and also to be joined by the Honorable Minister Mary Neg, who we have offered her several African passports. She's trying to decide whether she will become a Senegalese, a Ghanaian, or Zimbabwean, or a South African. So others can also put in their pitches, and I think she may get the first AU Africa passport. If we ever get to an AU Africa passport, Mr. Neg will make sure that you get the first one. Her commitment to promoting Canada's relationship with Africa is really unparalleled. We're with her. Gareth was with her in Ethiopia during Prime Minister Trudeau's first visit there in Africa. And I was with her in Senegal subsequently, and she's really been a driving force for promoting Africa as a major destination for Canadian trade and investment. So it's a real pleasure, again, for her to make some time off her very busy schedule to be with us. And obviously, our big sister, Fatimata Ba from Senegal, is a well-known leader in Africa in the business realm. I often say to people that when we think about gender empowerment, contrary to the perception, in Africa, most of the money is owned by the women. Most people don't know this. They tend to think that because when they go to meetings, they meet a lot of men, that the men own much. They don't own very much. You go to any market in Dakar, or you go to a market in Abidjan, or you go to a market in Kampala, or you go to a market in Bulawayo, the women are the ones who have the cash. The men may be talking a lot, but the women are the ones who move all the cash on the continent. So in a certain sense, a real privilege for her to join us. And obviously our big brother, Strife Masiwa, who Zimbabwe and Ghana have a very brotherly and sisterly relations, because the mother of that nation was a Ghanaian. So we are real pleasure to be in his company and to sort of try and launch this wonderful portal to help with procurement. So again, on behalf of all the members of the chamber, the directors, and all the staff and everyone else, it's a real pleasure to welcome you to this morning's webinar, and I will turn it over to Mr. Bloor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for your leadership of the Canada Africa Chamber. It is my distinct honor to welcome the Honourable Member of Parliament and our Minister for Small Business, Export Promotion and International Trade. Minister Mary Ng is a devoted community leader, and I know is someone who's always believed in the power of public service. She enjoys 20 years of experience in areas of education, women's leadership, job creation, and entrepreneurship. Minister Ng, like many of us, immigrated to Canada. She came from Hong Kong with her family and grew up learning about the struggle and eventual success that many newcomers experience. Her years working in the Ontario Public Service, at Ryerson University, and in the Ministry of Education led her to recognition as one of Canada's top performing public sector leaders. She later served as Director of Appointments for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and no doubt had the well-deserved and very publicly welcomed appointment as our Minister covering trade, small business, and export promotion. Minister Ng, welcome.
Well, thank you so very much, Gareth. Oh, am I on mute? You can hear me? Okay, good, okay. Thank you so very much, Gareth, and it's wonderful to see you. And it's always wonderful to get that warm welcome that I always get from your wonderful chair, Mr. Sebastian. I said to him earlier that, that how can one choose which African nation? I think that they're all so wonderful. but I think maybe the way to do it is actually to spend more time in Africa and spend it around the different nations and make one's choice then. And I still think at that point, you still won't be able to make a choice, to be really honest. And it's always great to be back to speak at the Canada-Africa Chamber of Business. And I just want to thank you for your terrific work there, Gareth, in you, your team, in just continually bringing people together. And today, of course, is bringing people together virtually, but whether it is offering COVID-19 related resources for your members, to working with our government to help Canadian businesses export into those new markets. And the Chamber has really played a leadership role during these challenging times, during good times and certainly during these challenging times. And of course, I'm very honored to be sharing this stage today, this virtual stage with Mr. Strive Masiwa. Wonderful. And lovely to meet you too, Ms. Fatoumata Ba. And I love that story about the women being sort of the leader and the money leaders. Boy, I lead Canada's women's entrepreneurship strategy. And if that were the case here, we really would be rocking and rolling, but there's still some more work to be done here, but we'll continue doing that work. And I'm certainly delighted to learn more about this very important initiative. Even though we might be physically distanced from each other, this pandemic has revealed just how close and how interconnected we really are. And our health here in Canada depends on the health of everyone, everywhere. And this is true of Canada and of our African partners. Back in February, as both Gareth and Sebastian had mentioned, I had the opportunity to travel to Africa and had a very fruitful trade mission in many countries in Africa. And I joined the Prime Minister while he was at the African Union Summit. And what we did was we wanted to focus on ways to support and to work together on the continued economic transformation and growth in Africa, recognizing the potential of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement and the ability for it to create good jobs and grow the middle class across the African continent. And I can't stress enough how incredible it was to see firsthand businesses from Canada and across the African continent building those relationships, learning from each other, and sharing innovative ideas and solutions together. We have a rich and diverse African diaspora here in Canada, and we have great opportunity to build on the already strong economic and cultural ties between Canada and partners in Africa. Le renforcement de la relation entre le Canada et les nations africaines dont nous avons tous travaillé si dur pour l'établir est essentiel. Despite the constraints of COVID-19, Canada remains committed to promoting peace, security, and parliamentary democracy across the continent. A strong international trade and investment relationship with Africa is critical to supporting these humanitarian goals, particularly given the disruptions to supply chains caused by this pandemic. International cooperation is necessary as we work towards an economic recovery plan that prioritizes the health and safety of our people and minimizes the economic impacts of COVID-19, leaving no one behind. So we're working with our international partners, including Africa, to keep trade and supply chains open. This will ensure that Canadian businesses and enterprises around the globe have the stability that they need, and people can continue to access food, fuel, life-saving medicines when they need them. We're also making sure that not only Canadian businesses succeed, but that our partners benefit from Canada's Trade Commissioner Services expertise. It's why our trade commissioners are now sharing their experience with the African Union as it develops its own online procurement platform. Canada recognizes that the impact of COVID-19 outbreak is significant for many of our African partners. It's why we have been active participants in the global response through humanitarian funding for the people in Africa and indeed around the world. Our government is providing $3 million to the African Centers for Disease and prevention control to strengthen laboratory capacity, disease surveillance and diagnostics, and biosafety and biosecurity capabilities. Les sciences de la vie sont un secteur fondamental et en croissance de l'économie canadienne, en particulier dans le contexte de la COVID-19. Our key strengths continue to be in the areas of R&D, with 50 excellent research hospitals here in Canada, 23 life sciences networks, 40 incubators and accelerators, for example, the Mars Discovery Center and the Admer Bio Innovations. And health artificial intelligence is also an emerging sector with over 80 companies in the field, thanks to Canada's national AI strategy. So there are many exciting opportunities to build on. The existing cooperation between Canadian expertise and the AU's procurement initiative as we all work together to prevent the spread of COVID-19 and to support a sustainable economic recovery for both of our people. Equinox Solutions and Luminultra Technologies, who we will hear from later in the program, are great examples of Canadian innovators whose health technology solutions can help people here at home and then across the African continent. And as we look to the road ahead, we remain committed to building our trade diversification in Africa. Canada continues to recognize that Africa is changing quickly and our relationship needs to reflect those changes. Canada is an important trading and investment partner for Africa's many dynamic and vibrant economies. We want to build strong, effectual, equal partnerships and advance shared priorities, including economic security, trade and economic growth, climate change, and peace and security. And I am personally committed to strengthening our economic relationship and deepening our people-to-people ties. That's the only way I think we're going to get through this challenging time, and that is to do it together. Merci beaucoup. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Minister, and thank you from all of us for your leadership in positioning Canada as a partner of choice, a message that I know has been well received across the continent. Well, it is my great privilege to welcome two icons of Africa, well recognized across every single market. I would like to recognize Strive Mashiwa and Fatoumata Ba, two leaders on the African Union procurement portal who are with us today. Our first address will come from Strive, who's very kindly told us ahead of the call to use a first name basis. So your leadership across the continent is highly recognized and welcome. As leader of the African Union Special Envoy on COVID-19, you're the founder and executive chairman of the South African-based international telecoms group Econet Wireless. As AU Special Envoy on COVID-19, Strive has pledged to coordinate the procurement and distribution of COVID-19 supplies by the private sector to unblock the supply chain across the continent. Under his leadership and guidance at Econet Wireless, the firm developed since its formation in 1993 into the global telecoms enterprise we know today, operating across more than 14 countries in Africa, Europe, and the East Asia Pacific region. He also serves on a number of boards, and it is our great privilege at the Canada Africa Chamber to welcome you for opening remarks with regard to the portal. Welcome.
No, thank you so much for those kind remarks. And Honorable Minister, it's my great honor and privilege to finally meet you. I'm very fond of your country, Canada. Mm-hmm. And for a few years, I chaired the Micronutrients Board. Mm-hmm. I used to come regularly to Ottawa. We meet at a challenging time, and I will, if you don't mind, go straight into that challenge and the mission that I have been given. As you know, as you rightly noted, I'm a businessman and not a politician or employed by the African Union. I took a call a couple of weeks ago from the President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, who is chairman of the rotating presidency of the African Union. So he's in his 1-year chairmanship. And, you know, he said to me, look, I have a big problem on my hands and I need your help. And he outlined to me that the challenge he wanted me to address as a special envoy. I'm one of 7 special envoys, the largest number of special envoys ever appointed on a major crisis. So we are 7, and I have the responsibility for the supply chain and for private sector initiatives. The challenge that we have on the supply chain has become a scramble for things like diagnostic kits, PPE, and I think you can see here my terms of reference. And we are going to share some parts of this with you, Honorable Minister, but we won't be able to share everything with you on this because the President has decided he wants to have a major press conference on the platform next week, which means I hope there are no media on the platform, but I'm not really supposed to announce the formation of the platform until the President has completed his work. But I will share with you my terms of reference, which are public, which are availability of the critical medical supplies. So the diagnostic kits in particular, PPE for hospital staff and healthcare workers, clinical management equipment such as oxygen concentrators and ventilators, immediate access to these items. Sadly, what has been happening is that the manufacturers under pressure from the big industrial players, both from the West and the East, whether wittingly or unwittingly, were not responding to our needs. And in some cases, we were being told that supplies will only be available after September or October. I'm sorry about the guy cutting the grass in the backyard. Let me see if I can. I'm sorry about that. Ooh. Anyway, he's gone away. So if we wait until September to get access to some of these things, you can imagine what that would look like. Access to quality and certified supplies, we basically were now subject to anything that could come out. It's been a real disaster. The cost and the transparency, anything where they are supposed, hold on a minute.
That was like that in my house last week. The same thing happened to me. There was all this noise and I thought, my goodness, where did it come from? And it was someone outside cutting the lawn.
Well,
I'm sorry about that. And I still can't get to it. Anyway.
That's fine.
I said that's what happened to me last week. So don't, no need to apologize at all. It happens to every single one of us, I assure you.
Oh, I've seen him now.
Now, Gareth, you know that I have a limited time, right, Gareth?
Yes, no problem, Minister.
Okay.
We've got that categorized. Thank you very much. Yeah.
I apologize.
Whoa, found him. Well, I'm stuck out here in the British countryside. Anyway, where was I? Can we have my graph, my presentation again? Oh, sorry about that. So it's been an absolute disaster for us. Anyway, as you pick up, we will quickly go through some of the items. So these were our challenges and basically my terms of reference. Fatimatu will quickly go through the slides. You don't need me to tell you what's happening with this disease. Okay, it is tracking up quite desperately. I want to see the slide that shows the testing scenario, maybe, yeah. So here's a, if you look at the slide, Africa is not testing. I mean, only South Africa is testing on any major scale. Most of the other countries are struggling to test. And you will see, because we don't have the test kits. Go to the next chart. Next slide. So currently the WHO, which has been leading the exercise to get us test kits, has a commitment from the major manufacturers of 10 million test kits for Africa over the next 16 weeks. But we are 55 countries. On a straight line basis, that is 46,000 test kits per country per month for Nigeria. Meanwhile, this is what we need to be able to ratchet up to the kind of testing you've been able to do as Canada. And never mind the testing, but to just look at the clinical management side of things. We currently need 25,000 ventilators, for instance, 50,000 oxygen concentrators, patient monitoring equipment, imaging devices, lab machines. So what you're seeing here is basically a compilation of the most urgent requirements that my team and I built with the Center for African Disease Control. We don't even want to show you what we have. Needless to say, here's what we look like on the monthly requirements. And I'll give the example of the N95 mask. We need 80 million a month. We need PCR test kits, not 10 million over 16 weeks. We need 15 million every month. And then other types of tests as well that you may be familiar with. So this is, sorry, I lost your slide. Fatima, is it still there?
Yes, absolutely. I was just wondering if you'd like to share your final opening remarks, knowing that the Honorable Minister will have to leave in the next 2 to 3 minutes. But I would like to, okay, I can show maybe.
No, I will, yeah, I will leave. If you can take me to just the home page of the platform, and I'll close my opening remarks.
Sure.
Hello? Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I will be showing the...
So to cut a long story short, Honorable Minister, what we've been able to put together is a number of things. First of all, we had to go out and secure the supplies on a continental basis. Get all the countries to agree that we will buy together, that we will procure together. And that required, obviously, the authority of the countries working together. And then we agreed on a platform to be built which would distribute whatever we got on using the WHO disease burden formula. So if we secure 10,000 ventilators from Philips in Holland, they are then distributed on that basis. So we have built an online e-commerce platform only open to the member states. And large donors can also use the same platform. We also wanted to break down the silos where you have different international organizations buying for Africa, and yet we cannot see what they are buying, whether it's WHO, UNICEF, World Bank, and many other groups. We wanted to see what they are providing. So this platform consolidates everything and brings all the partners in play. But, for the sake of, to allow you to go, I just want to stop here and say, Canada was the major Western country to come to our aid. And I reported this yesterday to the heads of state that, and I did tell them that whilst I did go to China, which committed to supply the entire requirement, I didn't have to get the entire requirement of what I was looking for because Canada came so graciously to our aid at government level. And I just wanted to convey our appreciation and the appreciation of our heads of state who met yesterday in a special session of the union leadership. And I hope you can take that back to your Prime Minister, that it was something that was warmly received. Our platform has many Canadian products. We have many products now from literally around the world. We have now actually achieved our target. The countries have started to use the platform as of this week. Countries like South Africa, Rwanda, Kenya, Mali, and many others have started to do their purchasing now through the platform. The platform is a not-for-profit platform. And it's not a donation platform because we are paying for our supplies from all the countries. It's a difficult time, and there are many challenges around livelihoods. At the moment, my mandate is about saving lives rather than on livelihoods. That will come. But because we still have the heavy lifting ahead of us, given the trajectory of the disease, it is not going to be in the process of how we get the test kits, but of how quickly we get them on the ground so that we can test, isolate, and treat. So to the extent that you are able to continue to assist us, this is greatly appreciated. And I will stop there. Africa does have passports. You can have an African Union passport. And I hope one day you will come and collect it.
Well, thank you so much. Well, thank you for that. And before I leave all of you, I wish I could stay longer, but Canada is very much of the firm belief that it isn't just about, it can't just be about Canada. I mean, we are all in this together, and the only way we're going to fight it is if we fight it all together, because as long as this disease is out there in the world, then none of us are safe from it. So really, the collaboration and the partnership is really very much about that. So thank you so much. And I want to thank you and Ms. Ba and just everyone. I mean, for the terrific work. It only happens because you've also put in your leadership and that of everyone that is here and countless others. For sure. So I appreciate that very much, and I apologize again that I have to leave. My phone keeps ringing now, but thank you, and I will see you soon. And I hope the next time I see you, well, it could be digital, but maybe it will be on the African continent, which would be terrific.
Thank you so much. Bless
Good.
you.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Minister, and thank you so much for the presentation, Mr. Masiwa. We are now going into the second part of that keynote, and one of the incredible entrepreneurs on the continent that I know certainly everyone in my generation and Sebastian certainly looks up to. Fatoumata Ba is a tech entrepreneur and a venture capital investor, the founder and executive chair of Django, and managing partner of Django Capital. The company builds, grows, and invests in the Pan-African tech for and good championship proven business models, looking at social impact as a big component of that. The company is backed by several family offices and has got multiple various areas of focus, all clearly outlined to improve the continent. At Jumia, which is biggest tech unicorn in Africa to ever be listed on the New York Stock Exchange. She served as the founder and CEO in the Ivory Coast, as the managing director in Nigeria, and as a member of the executive committee at the Africa level, driving performance in over 130 operations across Africa that span 10 verticals, well over 10, over 30 countries, and over 3,000 direct jobs were created under her leadership, and another 70,000 indirect jobs credited to her fantastic work. In turn, it meant an impact for over 500,000 SMEs across Africa. I know, Fatoumata, you've expressed your passion in leapfrogging development through technology, such as the platform you're presenting today, and particularly the impact on women in entrepreneurship and empowering SME growth, as well as tackling health and education through both medtech and edtech. Your career is well recognized and you've been rewarded with a number of distinctions. A partial list includes World Economic Forum's Young Global Leader, one of the 100 top African economic leaders of tomorrow, a Forbes top 30 entrepreneur, and you've received several awards alongside other icons well known in places like Canada, including Ariana Huffington, for your leadership in driving change. Fatoumata serves on the board of Southbridge Investment Bank, as well as on the board and investment committee of various other institutes, and on the Council of Women in Africa and the Global Future Council at the World Economic Forum. Fatoumata Ba, on behalf of the board and all of us here at the Chamber, a warm welcome and thank you for joining us for this keynote.
Thank you very much, Gareth. Thank you everyone for joining. We know that we have a number of Canadian companies that are eager to see how they can come and support our efforts. As Mr. Masiwa very rightly said, we are today really committed to deliver on this platform because of several reasons. Number one is, as soon as he has been appointed as special envoy by the African Union, there has been a very strong push to achieve several objectives. The first one is really to see where we can find critical supply and working hand in hand with the Africa CDC and to make sure that this critical supply is, one, prioritized. So we have discussed PPE, clinical management devices, as well as diagnostic testing kits. Number two is that it comes with the right level of vetting and certification. And here it has been really fantastic being able to host learning sharing sessions with Canada, knowing, for instance, your journey from finding and vetting 5,000 vendors in China and selecting a few hundred of them, and being able for us to leverage your work has been very decisive and instrumental in our progress. And as Mr. Masiwa said, we also work very hard on making sure that we really unlock the quantities required. And this is something which is a very ongoing effort. So for the first months, we are very proud, of course, because we've been able to secure quantities that are above the estimates that the countries have been sharing, and also with very competitive prices, because we are really reaching out directly to manufacturers. That being said, what we have been seeing now from the first responses of the countries that have been expressing their needs and making first purchases is really on an ongoing basis. We'll be adding new categories and also adding more stock because, for instance, for the PPE, it's really something which is on a monthly basis. And as you might know, Africa today has a relatively lower number of cases as the rest of the world. That being said, we are ahead in terms of the curve. We haven't flattened yet. We are actually seeing an increase both in cases and in fatalities in the last few weeks. And it's something extremely concerning, especially in some clusters, such as Sudan, such as Nigeria. And this is why we would like to engage with you today and really open up the perspective of several synergies. The first one, as I shared, is still learning about the certification that you are putting in place and the vetting that you have with Canadian manufacturers that are already supplying the Canadian governments in order to fight the coronavirus outbreak. The second thing is really to look at specifically what are the products that could be available in addition to the conversation that we have been having for the past weeks. And that's why I'm very excited to be able to welcome very soon very bright entrepreneurs that will share with us their solutions for us to be able to look at them, of course, make sure that the level of matching regarding country needs is the right one, but most excitingly onboard them and start really connecting the dots. Because what we also wanted to share with you, so we are not showing the platform live because we want to make sure that the African Union Chair gets really this first right of refusal to unveiling it to the press. But I will be detailing really two things that are amazing value proposition for Canadian manufacturers. The first one is actually payment facilitation. We know that cross-border trade is first about trust. You mentioned that I used to be an e-commerce leader, and it's really something that we've been working hard on with the team under the leadership of Mr. Maziwa, because we also know that if you're on a vendor perspective, number one, you can see that countries will come to you one by one, and you know we have 55 member states. So it could be a challenge to be able to catering to isolated needs. And for instance, some of these orders could be below your minimum order quantity. And number two, we also knew that if we were to open, let's say, 55 channels of payment with one manufacturer, it could be something cumbersome to manage in terms of processes. And that's why we came up with really strong value proposition in terms of aggregation. So we are able to aggregate volumes from the countries to make sure that if there are any constraints of MOQ, we can work around them. And number two, most excitingly, we were able to work together with leading strategic partners that are really playing a role in consolidating the payment and actually making the payment directly on behalf of the African countries to the vendor. So which is really taking a lot of complexity and delay as well out of the process that we'll have with Canadian manufacturers that will be joining us after this session. We also have been working very hard on the logistics standpoint. It's really something that we also believe has been today hindering our country from accessing goods they have sometimes are not being given access to, or sometimes they have paid but actually not fulfilled. And to make that happen, we have been working on mapping capabilities on several levels. We have been looking at, of course, global freight forwarders. So we have been today onboarding the three leaders, the three worldwide leaders. And in addition to that, we have been working very hard on onboarding also airlines to make sure that we have the best coverage in terms of corridors. So we are able, of course, from anywhere in the world, but specifically from Canada, to ship into 55 member states. And we're also able to accommodate several constraints of Incoterm. So we were happy to have Canadian manufacturers provide FOB, CIF, or CIP Incoterms in particular, but we can work with more Incoterms if necessary. In the audience today, we also have actually Bisola Atsiro that will be following up with our Canadian manufacturers that would be interested to join after the session. I'm mindful of time, so I will pause here. I know we have an interesting Q&A session planned, and I would like to be able to pause, give you back the floor so that we can start also hearing and learning about the very exciting value proposition of some Canadian manufacturers you have been working with. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Fatimata. And we heard the wonderful remarks earlier on Canada's role coming in and working with the continent, and certainly the response from the Canadian private sector has not been any different. We've got two companies among a range that approached us to speak, and we've gone with the first two in order that they were received. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome the first of those two companies, and that's Lumen Ultra Technologies, headed by Mr. Jordan O'Brien. This is a firm founded in 1995 that's been testing in Canada with operations across 6 countries where indeed testing has been happening. Globally recognized, the firm has been seen in various contracts with large entities, governments, as well as the private sector. And Mr. Jordan O'Brien, who's joining us, has over 20 years of experience in Canadian public affairs, as well as on the public policy side, and is currently joining us from Fredericton in the beautiful province of New Brunswick. Jordan, you have 3 minutes to present. Thank you very much.
Gareth, and it's an honor to be here with you and with these distinguished other guests. I'll try to stick to the 3 minutes so we can keep everybody on time. So I'm going to share a little presentation here and be happy to take any questions later on after the conference by email and phone, which I'll provide afterwards. So Lumen Ultra, as you mentioned, is a company based in New Brunswick, but we have offices in 6 cities across the world. 1 in the United States, 3 in Europe, and 1 in Australia. We sell to customers in over 80 countries. And over the last 25 years, our expertise has been in mostly water system testing. When the COVID-19 crisis began to ramp up, we responded to a call from the Canadian government to see who could adapt to assist. And our testing methodologies and our chemical manufacturing are very compatible to developing testing solutions for COVID-19. So we're now actually the sole supplier to the 11 government-run labs in Canada that are doing all of the COVID-19 testing in our country. We're providing 500,000 tests per week to the Canadian Public Health Agency, which then distributes them to the 11 labs across the country. In addition to that reagent test that we provide, which is the middle chemical part of the test, we're also developing 2 other solutions, one that's now in market and another one that will be hopefully by the first week of July. The first of those is based on our existing technology, and I'll put this slide up, which we use to test water systems. We've just changed the testing reagent in the middle. So this can be used to test various environments for COVID-19. So for instance, you could test air supply systems in buildings. You could test surfaces in nursing homes, hospitals, schools, manufacturing operations, other workplaces, and it tests right on site. It's as simple as you swab a surface, you put that surface into the testing alley, and then you put it in the machine, you get a result within 2 hours. That same model can be used for clinical testing, that is on humans, and that is subject to regulatory approval, and we hope to have that approval, as I mentioned, by the 1st of July. The reagent, as I mentioned, we're sending 500,000 units a week, or a month to, no, a week. 500,000 units a week to Canada. Our capacity is 5 million, so there's lots of opportunity to ramp up there. This environmental test is now on the market. We're selling about 10,000 units a week, and it's only been in market for about 2 weeks. And as I mentioned, the clinical one will be coming soon. We just signed a contract with Welltower, one of the largest operators of nursing homes in the United States, to sell them a large quantity of these tests to early detect and limit the spread within those sorts of facilities, which has been a major hotspot for spread. And we're also in talks with a number of folks in the sports, hotel, and airline space about the environmental test. So certainly there's applications for all 3 of these solutions to some of the challenges that I think a number of African countries are facing. And we would be very happy to be helpful there. I've got this last slide here. You see my information in the left. Happy to receive any email or telephone messages from anyone and connect you with somebody that can design a custom solution for your needs. And we'll certainly be taking advantage of this excellent portal that the African Union is putting together and look forward to helping stop the spread and contribute in that way.
Thank you very much, Jordan. As we prepare to open up for the Q&A at large, I would like to welcome Mr. Alexander Dahl to provide some inputs from Aquinox, where he serves as CEO and founder The firm was set up in 2010, and Aquinox provides an integrated pandemic response to public health care, does coordination and focuses on virtual care. Currently, they've been working with the government of Quebec to provide a web-based platform for contact tracing, as well as patient self-assessment as part of the Canadian government's COVID-19 response. Alex, it's a warm welcome to you for your 3-minute slot. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's an incredible honor to be here amongst all of you. And this is very personal to me. Not only have we had COVID-related deaths amongst families of our colleagues. I was some of the best years of my life growing up were in Kenya. As my father was working for the United Nations Environment Program, and the global challenges that we face know no boundaries. And what is more precious on this earth than a human life? So it's we feel it's a weighty responsibility and a privilege to be in a position to help with our solutions. I will very briefly share a little bit about what we do. For over 10 years, we've been helping unify care. And as you know, Canada is a very large country. We support remote populations that have no road access to the nearest hospitals, and have no even cell phone towers. They have a very sporadic satellite internet access. So we've started our activities fostering a multilingual and culturally sensitive virtual care and telemedicine. And since the pandemic hit, we've been supporting the government of Quebec to help flatten the curve, enabling the government to do more with less. So we've been able to reduce call volumes to national coronavirus lines and healthcare lines by 50%. And we save 30 to 120 minutes per contact tracing, case surveys, and per contact follow-ups, and also ensure the safety of a lot of the public health staff, community workers, by enabling them to work remotely and for a lot of the necessary activities to be automated, saving a lot of time. We believe we'd be honored to help in the continent of Africa and have some partnerships established. We believe we could help your PACT initiative to collaborate with COVID-19 testing. Our system is enterprise level and can scale to continental or global level to support public health, community, and healthcare workers. We'd love to collaborate to enhance testing, tracing, epidemiological modeling, and critical health forecasting, and to support greater communication and collaboration across African nations so that you can open businesses faster, reopen safely, and have an effective and sustained response to this pandemic or the next one. Thank you very much. And please feel free to contact me.
Alex and Jordan, thank you very much for displaying the incredible enthusiasm of the Canadian private sector to back the commitments made by our government to working in partnership with the African continent and the leadership that has taken place there already, as we've seen today, in driving this effort. We've got a number of questions that have come through. Thank you to each one of you who've posted questions. I'm going to go in the order that they've been received, going to Peter Vandal, who's got the first question. He writes that the NEPAD Business Foundation has been coordinating private sector responses in SADC with regard to the supply and demand for local manufacturers of PPE and working with the SADC pharmaceutical industry on diagnostics and so forth. He's asking or noting here to appreciate any guidance on how to align their work with the AU Special Envoy and the private sector initiatives. That first question came through at 10:26, so I certainly know a lot of that has been addressed, but feel free to make any further comments. And the next question is around manufacturing. Basically, is there a key contact person or criterion that can be used to make this assessment? Any comments on that would be welcome. And just as we get on to doing that, I want to welcome some members of Fatoumata's team who are going to be on the call, possibly fielding some of these questions. Basola Asiru, Oswald Jamira, as well as Precious Lunga. A warm welcome to each of you. Over to you, Fatoumata.
Thank you very much, Gareth. Thank you very much. I think I will start. I am checking the questions asked as I answer them, and I think most of them, I think 80% of them are related to how to get actually listed on the platform. So we actually have Mrs. Asiru. She's basically leading the vendor onboarding and the catalog production processes on our team. So she'll be able to collect your details. So we've shared and we've collected all your questions to be able to follow up individually. But all in all, we actually are going to work in 2 steps. The first one is we actually have the possibility to onboard on the back end through the team, so through Bizola, based on an onboarding template, including your supplier information, your category, your pricing, your stock at hand, the level of certification you have. In case you don't have currently stock at hand, your production capacity, your earliest shipment type, shipment time, and various other details like the content, the warranties, and also the images. So this will be able to follow up individually to everyone that has been requesting the access to the platform to be able to onboard you on the back end. That is before the full public launch. As Mr. Mazio has said, there have been an internal meeting from the AU chair, and we have formal approval, but they will be willing to come up to the public, so the general public and to the press in the very next few days. And after that, we'll be actually sharing the link directly of the platform with you, and you can actually begin the onboarding process online. And basically what we are looking at is to make sure that you really have already an approval from Health Canada, from FDA, EUA, from NMPA, from CE, from all regulatory body on an international level. And if not, we will be putting you in touch with IMA, which is the African Medical Agency, that they sit under NEPAD, and they actually have this mandate of regulation of clinical medical equipment and medicines for the continent. And for the first question that was actually related to NEPAD, so you can also reach out to our team to be able to understand more about the mandate of African Union Special Envoy, Mr. Maziwa. But all in all, we are already working actually with AMA, and we're already working with Africa CDC. So we'll be looking forward to contacting you directly, Peter Vandel, and to make sure that all your inputs regarding local manufacturers of PPEs are taken into account, because we're really proud ourselves to give an equal access and a very fair access, as much as you come on the top priority categories on the international certification and are able to supply anytime from now. And of course, we are very happy to be able to welcome Canadian manufacturers, and we were quite impressed with the 2 quick pitches. I'm sure they could be more, but I also know that we had to put the time constraints because of other commitment. But in the future, we'll be also very happy to welcome more of them. And we also are today already onboarding African vendors, and we actually are happy to hear about Canadian manufacturers that want to come and localize their production in Africa. We've been having very successful collaboration on ventilators, for instance, and we'll be looking forward to getting more of these coming. I will pause here because I'm mindful of time, and I will be sharing in response to all questions that we receive, the contact details for the team to begin the onboarding. But thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we'll certainly be following up with an email to all with some of the details that have been discussed here, as well as 1 or 2 further developments that are set to take place as this rolls out. At this particular point, given we've got just 3 minutes before the end, I wanted to invite either closing remarks from yourself, Fatoumata, or from you, Strive, with regard to the way forward. And just to thank each one of you once again. We've got a number of very positive comments coming through, especially from our members on our member WhatsApp line. This is really a great effort and an enormous achievement.
Okay, let me just close. First of all, my extreme appreciation and gratitude to you for organizing this platform. The Africa Medical Supply platform will be open from next Wednesday to the general public. You will be able to see it on your website once we release the link. For manufacturers, certified manufacturers, we want to onboard as many as are possible because the more the choice, let people choose what they want to choose. It is really like going on to Amazon. but only for medical supplies. Obviously, my first priority is to respond to the urgent needs in the field. But now that we are increasingly comfortable that those needs are being met in terms of volumes, we want to begin to expand the platform to accommodate broader medical needs. So with the, don't be concerned that when you first come to the platform, it looks like the category, the catalog is small in terms of categories. The key, it has been to kind of address those key areas of diagnostics, PPE, and clinical management. But we are ready to receive a broader range of supplies, but at this stage, not pharmaceuticals. We are also interested in innovations. So we will begin to open the platform for people to post innovations that have been proven elsewhere that governments may choose. We're not prescriptive to our governments. They are sovereign. So they can come to the platform, choose what they want, engage with who they want. We just want it to be able to be easy for them, accessible, and of course, to assure the suppliers payments. So our platform has the African Import-Export Bank, responsible for all payments, for all letters of credits, for all down payments to suppliers, to ensure the volumes. We also have a number of global foundations who are participating in guarantees on manufacture of critical items that we might feel need to be triggered by a guarantee to assure manufacture. So these, we are flexible, we are ready to discuss, but obviously we are focused to, we've got a category 10 hurricane overbearing on us. So obviously, if you are wanting to sell us a brush to clean up after the hurricane, you wait. Because right now we need to get everybody under cover and to protect them. But we are very welcome to engage and to look even at long-term to medium-term issues around African healthcare, manufacturing, facilities, and so forth. But over the next 6 weeks, we want to beat this thing from killing too many people. So on that note, thank you so much. Thank you for the support. We love Canada. Continue to support and work with us as partners as you have done for many decades. And to all my African colleagues in the diaspora in Canada, thank you for so much for continuing to push and support the homeland. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you very much. And I would be remiss to not thank those who make the Chamber's work possible and who are on this call today. Our partnership with Global Affairs Canada, Hatch, and their fantastic work, BM Dodo Design, the High Commissions of Rwanda and Lesotho, and both High Commissioners have been incredibly passionate supporters and are also members amongst all of the excellencies who've joined us representing the continent so ably right here in Canada. Thank you once again to everyone who's joined. The follow-up email will be coming soon. And once again, our sincerest thanks to both Strive and Fatoumata, who lead the way. And we all in Canada are certainly incredibly proud and remain committed now and right throughout the future course. We will beat this pandemic and we will see a beautiful and prosperous continent, the likes of which we're on the path to realizing. Thank you very much to each one of you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.